Hey guys, hey everyone, it's Raychich, and in this video I want to show you my semi-magic find Spark Stormweaver build, and I really like how it feels, and farming bridges with increased rarity is kinda fun, and in this build I didn't invest everything into magic find setup because I don't want to waste my damage and defense, so I have 250% increased rarity of items found, and it's kinda enough because this build is not super expensive. I mean, maybe the total price of this build is around 35 divines for that damage, defense and clear speed. Also in this build I added cast on shock gem setup for more damage against bosses, so actually we can kill bosses, unique bosses in 2-3 seconds. So I hope you will like this build, and before I start explaining everything you need, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment below and subscribe to my YouTube and Twitch. So here's me in my hideout, and now I'm gonna talk about this build in more details, starting with Ascendancy, passive tree, defense layers, damage sources, items, and of course skill gems. So yeah, everything you need to start building it. So my character is now level 90. As I said before, we picked Stormweaver Ascendancy, and I guess we should start with Ascendancy node first. So the first Ascendancy node we need to take in this build is Constant Gale. It gives Arcane Surge because I forgot to say about it before, but this build is Archmage based, so if you don't know what the Archmage is the skill which grants non-channeling spells gain 8% of damage as extra lightning damage for each 100 maximum mana you have. So actually it means our mana, our maximum mana is our main source of defense because it adds an extra lightning damage, and lightning damage is our main source of damage. So yeah, and that's why we take Constant Gale, because Constant Gale gives Arcane Surge, grants 10% more cast speed and 20% more mana regeneration rate, and it's not it's not over, because the next Ascendancy we should take in this build is Force of Will, and it gives increased effect of Arcane Surge on you per maximum mana. So that's why actually we need this Arcane Surge. So we have 3000 mana, or if you will invest, more like maybe 50 or 70 or 100 divines into this build, you will have even more mana, and it will you will deal even more damage, and your mana regen and cast speed will be even much higher, because when you're playing Spark, cast speed is very important, because like our map playstyle is very easy. We just run and spam this cast and spam this spark, so we really care about this cast speed, because your cast speed means your damage. So the next Ascendancy node, the third one we need to take into this build, is Strike Twice. It gives targets can be affected by 2 of our shocks at the same time, and it means if you don't know how the shock works in PoE Exile 2, the more lightning damage you deal, the more chance to shock you have. So Strike Twice Ascendancy node gives the ability to apply 2 shocks at the same time, so it means monsters, especially bosses, will take more damage after we shock them twice. And the last Ascendancy node we need to take here is Covering Winds, and it gives exposure we inflict, lowers the affected resistance by an additional 20%, and we need it because we inflict this exposure against bosses, and we will deal more lightning damage against them. So Ascendancy is pretty simple, and I hope you understand everything about Ascendancy nodes right now, because I explained everything in a few words, and I guess we can continue with my main passive tree. So here's my main passive tree. Don't forget that full mobilitics guide will be of course in the description, guys, so don't you shouldn't be worried about these builds and this guide, because I will explain everything, and anyway you can ask me any kind of questions in the comment section. So yeah, mobilitics guide will be in the description. Here's my passive tree. In a few words about this passive tree, we take the passives with increased maximum mana, increased maximum energy shields, some kind of elemental damage, increased effect of Arcane Surge, and some of lightning nodes, and some of big passives that I will talk about right now. So the first big passive we have in this build that you need to take is Chaos Inoculation. It gives maximum life become 0, but we have immunity to chaos damage, and it's kind of huge because in this build we have cap of all elemental resistances, and as well we have immunity to chaos damage because of this Chaos Inoculation, and it's kind of huge. And because on our items we anyway take energy shield instead of maximum life. The next big note you should take right here is Eternal Use, and it gives life recharges instead of energy shield and life recovery from flasks applied to energy shield instead. It means we don't have basically energy shield recharging per second, but anytime when we cast our life flask, it will work for our energy shield, so we will recover our ES while casting our life flask. So that's two big notes you should take for sure. And what else I can say? I can tell you about this passive tree, as I will tell you more about this lightning passive. So we need these 4 passives because it gives lightning skills have a chance to lightning skills to chain in additional time. So I mean it will work like our spark will chain more and will deal more damage against big packs of monsters. So it's pretty huge. The next one is I take this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 passive right here because it gives increased attack and cast speed with lightning skills. So that's what we actually expect. We need this cast speed for our spark, and also it gives increased lightning damage and is pretty solid. Why not? The next 2 lightning nodes I take into this build is power conduction. Here it gives increased magnitude of shock when flick. So I mean it will lower it will not lower, it will increase damage taken on monsters after we shock them. So it's really help against bosses and against rares monsters, so that's why you need to take this. And also it increases our chance to shock. As I said before, our chance to shock depends on our lightning damage, so more lightning damage you deal, more chance to shock you have. And the last lightning big passive we have is pure power. It gives 2% increased lightning damage per 10 intelligence, and I personally have 212 intelligence, so with like 21% increased lightning damage, and it's not bad. Here we take all the mana nodes because, as I said before, we play Archmage. And the one thing I want to discuss about is Adder Flow. It gives increased mana regeneration rate while moving, but reduced mana regeneration while stationary. So why we need mana regen in this build is actually because the first thing is we spam this spark. So we every few seconds we actually spend a lot of mana because we just spam this spark. So with this node we need to move to have a bigger mana regeneration per second. It's like 668, and actually, as I said before in an intro section, I added into this build cast on shock setup. So I will tell you about cast on shock in a few words. If you don't know how it works, we need to charge this skill to 100%, and then it will proc the spell we have equipped right here. So it will proc Comet, and it means when we have shocked enemies, but it's important, guys, it's very hard to charge this skill when we fighting with white and magic monsters. So that's why we use it only on bosses, and it will increasing our damage against the bosses pretty well. So I use my cast on shock setup, and I will tell you more in more details just after a few minutes when I will be talking about my skill gems. But this is my setup. We have 3 auras, cast on shock, Grim Fist, and Archmage we use against bosses, but don't worry, we don't need cast on shock in maps and in breaches and rituals. So when we're fighting in maps, in rituals and in breaches, so I mean our main setup is we just on active cast on shock and active blink. So we activate blink and unactivate cast on shock, and we run with blink, Grim Fist, and Archmage. So that's our main setup. We just blink, cast shock, and this is how we fight actually with monsters. So I guess we're done with our main passive tree. About my second weapon set tree is when I swap my weapon. I allocated all the increased effect of curses, increased duration of curses for our conductivity curse. Actually, if you don't know how it works when we swap our weapon, or I mean when we cast our curse, you need to be sure, guys, it's very important. You need to be sure that you activate this button. So used with weapon set 2, only 2. It will be using with the first one and the second weapon set by the default settings, but you should click here and use with weapon set only 2 for our conductivity curse. And it means when we like here is me running with my main weapon set, but when I will cast my conductivity, it will automatically swap my weapon and will automatically swap my tree. And when I will cast any of my other skills, it will automatically swap back and swap my main tree. But to be sure that it will be swapping it back, you need to check that all of your skills except conductivity using this setting used with weapon set only first weapon set. So it will be for your spark, for your orb of storms. So yeah, you need to check it twice. About my items, I guess we'll be talking about my items because now you know everything about my passive tree. I mean, in a few words, I don't want to make this video like pretty long, so guys, you can ask me if you didn't understand something, but I guess it's very clear. And now I will be talking about my items, about my defense, about my skill gems, and yeah. So the first one is items. Let me start with my wand. What we need, what modifiers we need on our wands. The first one is as much maximum mana as possible because it's our main source of damage. The next one is +4 to level of all lightning spell skills. And the last, the last necessary mod in this build is increased cast speed. And if you have like a bigger budget, like I bought this one for maybe 5 or 6 divines, you can buy something with gain of damage as extra lightning or as extra like other elements, but lightning is the best one. So here's about wand. The next one is my focus. I use focus in this build, and this focus is actually almost perfect for this build. I spent maybe 6 divines for this focus, but what you need to find in mods, it should be with maximum mana as much as possible, +2 to level of all spell skills. It's very important for our spark. Increase cast speed and resistances. So especially if you have like as much as big budget as I had, like maybe 25 or 35 divines, you should buy something with increased energy shield, to maximum energy shield modifier, and also with increased spell damage. So this focus is actually perfect if you have budget like 5 or 6 divines to buy focus. Just find something with these mods that I have. So the next one is my helmet. I have my helmet with 157 energy shield. About helmet, you should buy something with as much energy shield as possible, also as much mana as possible, as always. Increase rarity of items found, because as I said before, this build is semi-magic find, so it's really important. But if you don't have like enough budget, if you don't have 25 or 30 divines, you can buy without rarity and then you can just upgrade it later. But also it should be with one of elemental resistances, because we need to have 75 or 76%, because in this build we can have 76% of all elemental resistances. And about attributes, in this build we need to have 2 items with plus 30 to intelligence and plus 30 to dexterity. So on my helmet I have plus to my intelligence, and on my gloves I have plus to my dexterity. So you should be sure that you have two of your rare items have this +2 attributes, because yeah. The next one is it will be amulet, I guess. It should be solar amulet, because this base gives +2 spirit in implicit. And in this build, about my spirit, you should have at least 190 spirit to be able to use Blink, Grimfist and Archmage in maps, and Grimfist, Archmage and Cast on Shock against bosses. Or you can just deactivate your Grimfist in boss fights, but 190 spirit is your minimum you should actually have to play this build. Actually, it will be even better if you will have more than 200 spirit, because you will be able to use clarity with your Archmage and you will have more mana regeneration rate, and it means it's pretty important, because more mana regen we have, more often combat will be actually proc against bosses. So the first one is, don't forget about solar amulet base. The next, what you should be looking for on amulet is increased maximum energy shield, plus as much mana as possible, plus 2 spirit, plus 2 level of all spell skills, and some resistances. This amulet like looks huge, but it's not pretty expensive. Like maybe I bought mine for like 3 or 4 divines, and you can actually buy cheaper, even like for maybe 2 or 1 divine, if it will have less maximum mana. So about my allocation, I allocate my amulet with Essence of the Storm. It gives 5% of damage as extra lightning damage and increased chance to shock. Like, I think this allocation is pretty cheap. Like, it costs maybe like 20 exalted orbs in these distilled emotions, and it gives pretty good buffs. But if you have like unlimited budget, I mean, 50 divines or more, you can allocate right here Lightning Rod. It gives lightning damage with non-crit hits, is lucky, and I mean it will roll lucky things are re-rolled twice and the better result used, and it will increase your lightning damage much better. But if you will allocate this lightning rod right here, it means you will need to also allocate these nodes and take this wild storm, because it will increase your maximum lightning damage. So it will roll the number of lightning damage you will deal, and you will have with wild storm you will have more maximum lightning damage possible. So yeah, but it only if you have like 10 or 15 free divines to invest into this build. So that's what I recommend to invest in. The next one is body armor as Warrior, Invictus, Grand Regalia, and I guess like I have this body armor with 4 sockets, but if you have like more free divines, you can buy with 5 sockets. And about modifiers, and the first modifiers, it should be like necessary on this body armor is plus 10 to spirit per socket rune or soul core. And the second one, what I have is increased rarity of item found per socketed rune or soul core. So it gives me 40% increased rarity and plus 40 spirit, even without actually equipping any kind of soul cores and runes. About my soul cores in this body armor, I have 4 soul cores with increased rarity. Each of these soul core are pretty expensive, like maybe 3 divines each, but I mean, you can not equip it if you don't have this currency yet, but you should buy just with these modifiers, because it's like free rarity, increased rarity and free spirit that we need in this build to use blink and to use cast on shock. The next one is 2 rings, 2 rare rings, and the first ring gives plus to all elemental resistances and implicit, as much mana as possible, increase rarity and mana regeneration rate, because mana regen is pretty important, as I said before, and this ring actually has pretty low increasing cast speed, but it's what I bought for maybe 1 or 2 divines, and if you have more, you can just buy a better cast speed modifier. Another ring gives as much mana as possible, also increase rarity of items found, and more cast speed. So it's pretty cheap rings for maybe 1 or 2 divines, so you can afford it for sure. The next item is glows. Glows should be with as much energy shield as possible, mana as possible, rarity of items found, and as I said before, dexterity. So like 1 item with intelligence, 1 item with dexterity. Another item in this build is my belt. I use my rare belt. I knew about Ingenuity unique belt that gives increased effect of modified on our rings, but I mean I need resistances and I want to invest like 100 plus divines into this build, so that's why I use rare belt with 3 elemental resistances. It's kind of huge, and 166 maximum mana. So that's what I recommend if you don't want to invest more than 50 divines into your build. And the last item in this build is my boots. It should be with at least 30% increased movement speed, as much mana as possible, plus 2 maximum energy shields and resistances. Or maybe I forgot to say about charm. Charm should be with cannot be stunned, because we don't want to be stunned actually in maps. And about freeze, you shouldn't be very afraid, because we have icebreaker passive node right here, so it gives 100% of maximum energy shields as additional freeze threshold, so it's kinda hard to freeze our character, so it's pretty fine. Now we know everything about items, and now I need to talk a bit about my weapon swap. So for your weapon swap, as I said before, it swaps our passive tree for more increased effect of curses, as all we need for our second weapon swap, because then we will use our skill and will swap back. So about our second weapon, it should be stuff with grants a Sigil of Power in implicit. It's very important because we need this skill. I will talk a bit later about my skill gems. So yeah, you should buy something with Sigil of Power in implicit. And about mods, you should be looking for +6 to level of all lightning spell skills, and also you can buy something with increased cast speed as well. These two mods are the only mods you should be looking for. So +6 to level of all lightning spell skills and cast speed. I just forgot about cast speed, so that's why I have only with my +6 to level of all lightning spell skills. Don't look at the spell damage, we don't need it because we will automatically swap our passive tree just after casting on activity. So yeah, now you know everything about items and weapon swap, and I will tell you a bit about skill gems. So the first skill gem we have, don't look at this mana drain, we don't need it. We have in this build is Sigil of Power. As I said before, it's our second weapon slot. So when we cast it, it will automatically swap our passive tree and our weapon, and it gives this buff grants 14% more spell damage per stage, and actually it has maximum 4 stages, and it gains a stage when we spend a total of 50% of our maximum mana while in this area. So that's why I use Sigil of Power with persistent support. It gives more skill effect duration because we need this circle to last longer, and actually we use it with magnified effect support because it gives more area of effect. As I said before, we right here we have a mod, we have more mana regeneration rate while moving, so that's why I want this circle to be bigger to be able to run right here. And while moving, we have more mana regen. So yeah, the next one is our main skill is Spark. We use Spark with Arcane Tempo for more cast speed, with Control Destruction for more damage with hits and elements, and we cannot deal crit hits, but we don't care about crit hits in this build. The next one, Acceleration, which gives more projectile speed, so we will damage enemies faster. The next one is Consider Casting, it gives more damage with spell hits, and the last one is Inspiration, which gives supported skills have less cost, because without it, it will be pretty hard to spam it because we will just waste all of our mana. The next one is our Cast on Shock. We use it only on bosses, guys. So like imagine this map device is boss, so when even before entering the boss area, we will just unactivate Blink and activate Cast on Shock. So this is how it will work. Because Cast on Shock will work completely bad against, I mean, in maps against magic and white monsters, so that's why we use it only against unique bosses. So I use Cast on Shock with my Comet because Lightning Conduit is very expensive. I mean, for mana it will like cost 500 and plus mana, so that's why I use Comet, and we don't care about cold damage because anyway it will deal mostly lightning damage because we play Archmage. We use Cast on Shock with Comet. With Spell Echo, Spell Echo works like it will be working twice for our Comet, so it will be 2 Comet landing on the ground. The next support is Impetus. It works like it gain 40% increased energy, so we will proc it even more often. And the last support gems I have, because I don't have 6 link here and I have 5 link, we have Energy Retention right here, and it gives skill triggered by supported meta skills have 35% chance to refund half of their energy cost, and it means we will be able to proc this Comet even more often. But don't forget, guys, that mana regen is very important in this build to be able to cast Comets, because I mean, without Cast on Shock we don't care about mana regen like much, because we have we don't care about this mana regen when we just running in maps. But if you activate your Cast on Shock, 1 Comet costs like almost 400 mana. That's why we need to have as much mana regeneration rate as possible. The next one is our Blink setup, so we use it in maps, and I use my Blink only with my Ingenuity support. It gives more increased cooldown recovery rate, so I mean we need to cast Blink more often. The next one is Grim Fist. It's pretty good buff because, as I didn't say about this before, but in this build our main source of defense is not only resistances and cap of in immunity to chaos. We have 4000 energy shields, and it's not actually all we have, because we use Grim Fist a buff here, and it gives 50% chance to spawn a remnant while an enemy dies in our presence, and each remnant recover 200 of our energy shields. And it's pretty important that this energy shield can overflow our maximum energy shield. So it means while fighting in maps and while killing monsters, we will get these remnants, and it will give us a bonus energy shield. So it means we can have not only 4,000 energy shield, we can have like 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9,000 of energy shields while fighting in maps. So pretty good for our defense, and I don't actually use it with any support gems because we don't have free spirit for it, and it's still pretty strong. The next buff we have in this build is our Archmage, is our main source of damage. As I said before, it gives 8% of damage as extra lightning for each 100 mana, and I use it with lightning mastery with 4+1 to level of supported lightning skills. And if you have 200 spirit, you can use it with clarity as well for more mana regeneration rate. The next one is our curse that we use with our second weapon tree. We use it for cursed enemies have -2 lightning resistance, and actually we have plus 90% increased affect modifier because of our second passive tree, and I use it with hate and curse supports for increased effect of supposed curses, and with focused curse actually to curse enemies more quickly after being cast. The last skill gem we have in this build is Orb of Storms, and actually it works completely fine. We cast it only against bosses because it's like a small ball and small area, and it will shock enemies, and I will tell you a bit about support gems because it's pretty important in boss fight. I'm sorry guys, in boss fight. So the first one is the first support gem here is lightning exposure, and it gives supported skills inflict lightning exposure for 8 seconds on shocking an enemy. So when we shock enemy, it will inflict lightning exposure, and as I said before, we have scouring winds here, so we will our exposure is even stronger. So the next support gem we have is Strip Away, and it gives us exposure applied by supported skills has even more increased effect, so more exposure effect, more damage we will deal. The next one is Phantom Mana. It's pretty cool because, as I said before, while running we have 668 mana recovery per second, but if we will run in this Orb of Storms area, we will have 740 mana regeneration rate per second. So it's pretty good in while bossing, because we will cast our cast on shock will proc cast on shock more often. And the last support gem we have here is Overcharge, and it gives 75% increased magnitude of shocks inflicted with supported skills. So it will just increase our damage against shocked bosses. So that's everything you should know about skill gems in this build, and I guess I explained everything you need to start playing this build, guys. Actually, detailed guide will be in the description, of course, and I hope you will like this build. I really spent a few days making this build and making this video, so please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel. It was Raychich as always. Happy New Year, guys, and yeah, good luck playing this build, and take care.